Welcome, everybody, to the HDI Local Chapter's live stream show. It's our weekly show live on Twitch Wednesday nights. We repost it up on YouTube. It should be up tonight as well. And before we get started, I want to talk about our show sponsor, Robert Half Talent Solutions. Robert Half is the business that helps other businesses keep going. We're going to talk a lot about that tonight. Matter of fact, our guest tonight is from our host, our show sponsor, Robert Half. You can check out their website, roberthalf.com/technology, where you can not only can you find jobs if you're a candidate looking for a job, or find candidates if you're an employer looking for candidates, but you can also find a lot of other valuable information up there. Like they have a salary guide. It's out there every year. They put that out there, right? The other thing is you can find good information on maybe how to write a resume, how to interview for a job, or how to interview for a job. Lots and lots and lots of cool things. All right. So before we move into our show, I also want to say, like, if you really like what we're talking about on these shows, like us on YouTube or Twitch, follow us, and help spread the word about the good, these guests we have on our show. So tonight, our guest is Zach Jiru. Zach is a regular, and Zach, by the way, we do this quarterly as the show sponsor, and we just put this to the very last episode of the first quarter. So we really pull we
snuck in there.
Right. So if you don't know Zach, you can check him out on LinkedIn. Zach, he's not only does he work for Robert Half, but he's also an HDI local chapter officer for the Sacramento chapter. So he really gets and understands HDI. But let's get, as we talked pre-show, Zach, a lot of content, little time.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk a little bit about an article that Robert Half just published about what to do when a candidate ghosts you. So let's start off by telling the audience what is ghosting, in case they don't know, which I find that hard to believe. But
yeah, and most people will be familiar with traditional ghosting. You as an applicant, you apply to a position, maybe you even interview, and days go by, weeks go by, and you just never hear back from that employer. Well, in that case, you got ghosted. Well, nowadays, what we're seeing is the reverse of that, where since candidates are in the driver's seat and they have all these options and choices, they are actually going to interviews, getting job offers, and ghosting employers, and simply, not responding, not accepting positions because they've already moved on. And there's a lot of factors that go into that. Either subpar offers, or just time in between interviews. That's the biggest one probably, and the most frustrating one from me as well at Robert Half, when that interview process is 2 weeks long and 4 interviews long. By that time, candidates have more positions, more offers, and they're moving on.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned, because my wife had taught. I didn't know it was called ghosting on the other end, the employer end, but I remember like it happened to me several times when I was looking for a job. Maybe right before I went to the university. And when I got there, and knowing how slow universities are, my wife goes, "You had better get back to those people one way or another, because you know how it feels." And I went,
"Yeah,
yes, ma'am." I was like, I didn't even think of that as a form of ghosting, but you do talk about, mention now that ghosting is on the reverse side. And I guess I'd never, in all the years that I've been doing interviewing and hiring, I have never experienced ghosting until recently. I mean, I've even had so far a candidate brought their mom to the interview with them, and she wanted to sit in the interview. But
the new one
being ghosted as an employer, it just. And I even told you, I shared with you pre-show, like I've tried to speed up my cycle. So when my recruiters get me a resume, I review it that day, if not within the hour, and I get back to them, yay or nay, to let the person know. And if I say yay, I say get a phone screen going. Phone screen for us is, I told you some of the limitations of working where I work. So my recruiter goes out and does what I call the scratch and sniff test, like, can you do all these things and then you can work here, and we try to get it going fast. And yet I've still been ghosted. So why is it, like, you mentioned some of the reasons why it's more common, right? Because I thought to myself, why is this like happening so much? But then I talked to my reps at Robert Half in Pittsburgh and all over, and I'm finding, Well, there's not a lot of, there's like more jobs than candidates.
So it's become more and more common, and as you can imagine, over the last 2 3 years, it's obviously on the rise, especially with the big promotion of remote work and hybrid availability. I mean, if you think about it, not to age myself or anyone else that's listening, but if you think about when you were first applying to positions, you looked around your general area. Where could I drive to? Where can I get? And those are the places I apply to. Well, now there are so many options for candidates. They don't need to look down the street or in the city. They're looking across the country. So they're not limited, by their own physical geography anymore. Their employers are now competing,
Oh,
nationally.
globally, really, right? I mean, we're
Yeah,
dealing with, so on HDI local chapters, we're dealing with sponsors now that are successful companies over in the UK that are opening up over here because they can hire remote employees even here, to
exactly.
handle that 12-hour difference or whatever the difference is between here and across the pond, right? So you're right. Yeah.
It's just a different mentality. Employers, back in the day would think, if I ghost a candidate, look, I'm a big employer in the town. I'm going to have more candidates come in tomorrow. And nowadays, it's down to a drip. It's trickling in. Candidates are trickling in for applications.
Oh,
So.
you aren't kidding. I can't believe, that's so true. But here's the thing I got to ask you though. Don't you think it's detrimental to a candidate to ghost like an employer? I mean,
So, I mean, yes. I mean, flat out, the answer is yes, right? Like, obviously, on a personal level, but from a Robert Half professional level, we would never promote that, and we would always advise candidates to get back to us so we can relay that message, or relay that message, personally if you're applying on your own. Does that always happen? No. But again, nowadays candidates are seeing it as, look, if I burn a bridge at company A, I still have
yeah,
15 full alphabets I'm applying
right.
to.
Yeah, it's
What
true.
are the chances it comes back around, to
Yeah,
this
well,
position?
yeah. I mean, I guess except that if the bosses switch jobs into there, but you're right though. I think what I hear you saying is like the candidates have more options, and what employer in their right mind is going to get on LinkedIn and trash somebody on LinkedIn about ghosting them? I mean, that doesn't look good for your company, and that might not be legal either.
Exactly.
So,
So
but talking about that though, Share, what are your thoughts about like companies can't really afford to ghost either, right?
no, and that's the thing. And when we're having these conversations and we're setting it up with employers and we're talking them through their interview process, as Robert Half, when we find candidates, it may only be one or two. So when we're having those conversations and we're setting it up, we need to set those expectations on, okay, walk us through your hiring process. And then a lot of times we're trying to do what we can to speed it up. Hey, can we condense that? Can we get more people on one phone call? I mean, if it moves the interview from a half hour to an hour, but we can check off two other boxes, like let's do that. Um,
That must be in your handbook because Michelle, my rep, said that to me on Monday. Same
Yeah.
exact thing. I was
See?
like,
So it's funny.
I
See,
didn't
so
think
we're not
about
making
that.
it up as we go. Robert Half, same message, right? You're getting it on the East Coast, and I'm over here on the West Coast.
That's
So
right. Yeah.
it's
Yep.
very uniform, and we are seeing that across the country.
But you're
My
trying to be
number,
helpful to the employer as much as the candidate, though, because you're trying to help me hire somebody. Because I mean, let's call it. That's how you guys get paid, right? By placing
yeah.
people.
And look, I share in their frustration because we have many of times put great candidates in front of employers, and I mean, as a hiring manager, sometimes you're just hamstrung by this is how the company does it. So by the
Policy,
time
right?
it comes back to, it becomes time to make that offer, or you get back to me or Robert Happ or whoever you're hiring. Um, that candidate is long gone, and you get frustrated and it's like, well, can you find me another candidate? It's like, no, we
That
that
was
was the one, and everybody was competing for them. um
Yeah. So, before we move on, let me ask the audience here, I think one of the things that Zach and I would like to know is if you're listening to this, whether you're listening live and you can put it in the Twitch chat or even later in the comment section, have you ever been ghosted by an employer? And if you want to like to share your experience, or even if you were an employer, what's it like out there for you? Have you been ghosted by candidates or lots of candidates? I shared with Zach, I got ghosted by one candidate twice this in
That's fun.
February. It was like crazy. I the person reached out. We got it, and it was actually through our website, so it wasn't like it came through any of our external recruiters. We got the resume. The guy was good. I actually know him through the HDI community, I think. So because that's the
Uh-oh.
only place I think I know this person, and he applied for the job. I said, "This guy looks great. Let's get him interview him." So we set him up for an in-person interview. Our recruiter reached out to him the day before. He was confirmed, and then he didn't show up the next day. Um, just didn't hear anything. Crickets. About 2 weeks, 2 to 2.5 weeks later, he emails me an apology on why he ghosted us, basically. And he didn't ask for a second chance, but I thought the reason he gave, and I won't share that on the show, but the reason he gave was pretty legit. So I said, "Hey, would you be interested in a second chance?" And he's like, "Absolutely." And so we set him up for 2 days from then, and he confirmed. And then the day before, he confirmed, and then he didn't show up again. I was
Shot himself in both feet.
big time, big time. So, it was just amazed me. So,
I had a ghosting story where, and as a hiring manager, I try to follow up good, bad, indifferent with all candidates that apply. Just putting that out there as a best practice. But I told you too that I had applied to sit not for another job, but to sit on a committee and a board for where I live, for my community, to be involved. That was in 2019. They got back to me in December of 2021. I don't even live there anymore, but it took them 2 years to respond. Now, granted, they respond. I'm still calling that ghosted because a lot can happen in 2 years.
2 years, yeah.
I may not even be here anymore in 2 years. Like, who knows what's going to happen? But
Oh,
I mean, that's a good example.
I take it they just go by the email, not the actual where you live.
I mean, it was frustrating.
So Zach, we're down to less than 2 minutes left in the show. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to share any tips with either the employer or the candidate on ghosting and maybe alternatives.
Yeah, so I mean, what I would say is we do have some good reporting on this when it comes to data. One of our recent reports, I think it was, let me just check, make sure I'm giving correct statistics here. So 56% of employees have said that they've missed out on a great candidate. And again, not that they were all getting ghosted, but a lot of it had to do and was surrounded about just their hiring process. But when it comes to being ghosted and doing the ghosting, from a candidate perspective, it's certainly not a best practice. I would highly recommend, even if you're just sending off an email, like thanks but no thanks, you can keep it short and sweet. But I would definitely recommend doing that. Again, just not to burn any bridges. To your point, that hiring manager could get a job at the dream job that you end up wanting, or with that dream company that you want to work for. But as an employer, I mean, if I could sum up the best piece of advice, it would be speed it up, because speed has been the name of the game as of lately. And I feel like every time we get on the show for the last year, we've been drilling that in.
Yes, that's
But
true.
the shelf life of candidates, and I think you actually said that Pittsburgh was telling you the same thing. We're looking anywhere from 48 to 72 hours.
That's what she said. 48. Yeah, she did. That's exactly what she told me. You know?
So, I mean, evaluate your hiring process and be honest about if everything is needed. A lot of people do a pre-screening phone screen. And look, I get it, but
Well, in all fairness, that's good advice too. So what I do is, if that's what my internal recruiter does, but if I'm working with Robert Half, I give them all of that, so that gets done up front. I don't want to mess
Oh,
with
thanks,
that.
Tom.
Yeah, because I figure,
Yeah.
and that's actually what Michelle. I'll say Michelle had given me that advice. Like, give me that information, and we'll do it to speed it up. Great, that's awesome.
That is one of the benefits of working with a staffing agency, or at least a good one like Robert Half. We do take a lot of it off of the hiring manager's plate,
Yes.
to speed it up. So when it comes to interviewing, asking those technical questions, making sure they're qualified, checking references. So you're getting a qualified candidate put in front of you so you can go right in on, is this person going to be a fit for the job? And, hopefully you're able to wrap that up in one interview.
Yeah, and I
But
have to give a shout out to you guys because when I was working with my local folks, they said, hey, if you have some scratch and sniff like technical stuff, if you let us know what it is, we can ask that for you. And so I probably had about a half an hour conversation with the local team. And when Robert Half comes in with a team, they come in with a team. I think there were four
absolutely.
people on that call. My Zoom screen was filled up, and they were like just asking questions and clarifying things. They had a technical recruiter on. They had the my account rep, and I felt like it was important, just as important to you as it was to me, to find
Absolutely.
somebody. So it really, I have to say, I really appreciate that. So
And for those employers that either don't have the time, or really just aren't interested in either partnering or getting on a call to do that, the tools that you mentioned up front that we have available on the website are invaluable. And something new, which I don't know, even if you know, Tom, I could drop this here on the show. So this is brand new to Robert Half. So breaking news. We are actually, for the first time, revising and updating our current salary guide.
I did
So
hear rumor of that.
yeah, so it should be completed here in the next 2 weeks. We are pre-scheduling meetings with potential employers that want the updated copy. We just felt it was necessary with everything that's been changing over the last couple years, and what we've seen, across the country, within industries, what candidates are expecting, all the data that we gather. We just felt it would be a disservice if we didn't provide that again in an updated salary guide. So it will be updated. First time I've ever heard of them doing that. But the 2022 salary guide should be updated beginning of April. And yeah, if anyone out there is interested in it, you don't have to book it with me, but Robert Half's all over, and they'd be more than happy to discuss that. But great tools, and we refer to it as the salary guide, but there's a ton of information in
Oh,
there over and beyond
and
just
it's so interactive now, Zach. It's like, it's awesome, to be honest.
Yeah.
I saw the interactive one, and it was really, really cool because I like how they give the percentage for the area that you're hiring for, so to
Yeah,
speak.
exactly. So it's
Yeah.
all broken down geographically, but it goes, from entry level to mid level to a senior
Yep.
person. So we try to make it as seamless as possible and as easy to use. So
Well, Zach, I want to thank you for being on our show. I put the Robert Half LinkedIn, it's over underneath you, LinkedIn
okay.
address there for LinkedIn. For Robert Half, I just went to your page and copied that, so I hope Susan doesn't yell at me for putting the wrong thing up there. Anyway, Zach, I'd like to thank you. And for the listeners, thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to our show. If you are interested about HDI local chapters, the address is up here for our website. We do have trial memberships available that you can check us out. We do offer a lot of good stuff, a lot of good, not only what you see on our links here for our YouTube and Twitch channels and things, but we also have a monthly the chapter meeting that's open to anybody. You don't have to be a member. They have a lot of good discussions and interactions. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, please, follow us on our channels, like us, follow at HDI Local, and keep on coming back. And Zach, I hope we don't wait till the end of the next quarter. We got to get you in sometime in like June.
Yeah. Hey, I'll definitely make myself available. I
Maybe
love doing this
May.
and participating.
Right. All righty, sir. Well, thank you. Have a good evening, and let's talk to everybody next week.
Thanks, everyone.